My jealous sister accused me of being a gold digger and tried to ruin my boyfriend's career. My parents took her side, as always. Hello, everyone. I don't know where to start. I suppose I've always been the other sister. My name is Sarah, and I'm 29 years old. I grew up in the shadow of my older sister Olivia, who is now 34. It feels like my entire life has been spent trying to measure up to her, but I never could, at least not in my parents' eyes. Olivia has always been the golden child. I recall as a child seeing how easily everything appeared to fall into place for her. She was the star of every school play, the captain of her soccer team, and a student whom my parents couldn't stop talking about. Meanwhile, I was simply Sarah, the quiet one, the girl who enjoyed drawing in her sketchbook but did not shine in the ways that mattered to them. It wasn't as if I hadn't tried. I put myself into art because it was the one thing I thought I was good at, but even that wasn't enough. I recall one particular day well. During a parent-teacher conference, my middle school art instructor informed my mother that I had true talent and that if I worked hard enough, I might be able to receive a college scholarship. I felt very proud and excited, but when we arrived home, my mother replied, "That's nice, honey, but it's not like art is a real career. Olivia's already studying for the SATs. Maybe focus on something practical." This shattered me. I was 12. I did not wish to be practical. I wanted them to be proud of me, even if it was for reasons other than Olivia. But the favoritism did not end there. My parents gave Olivia every possible benefit. They paid for her piano lessons, individual tutoring, and pricey summer camps, which she didn't appear to like. When it came to me, however, the funding was tight, or so they claimed. I asked for painting lessons, even cheap ones at the community center, but they always answered, "No, we just can't afford it right now, Sarah." They did, however, manage to finance a new car for Olivia when she reached 16. Regarding that car, here's a story that still makes my blood boil. On my 16th birthday, I convinced myself that this was finally my time. If Olivia got a car, maybe they'll surprise me with one as well. Instead, I received a sweater. A sweater? I'm not ungrateful. I understand not every child gets a car. But what about the kicker? Olivia arrived home from college with a flat tire. And guess who got to wait and watch my father spend hours mending it while my birthday cake lay untouched on the counter? Happy birthday to me. And it's not simply the material aspects that sting, it's the emotional neglect. My mother constantly praised Olivia, saying things like, "You're so beautiful, you're so smart, and you're going to do amazing things." I can't remember the last time she said that to me. I was ecstatic to get my first job at a tiny graphic design agency, but my mother's response was, "That's nice, but when are you going back to school? You know Olivia got her master's degree." I tried talking to my father about it once. He's quieter than my mother and more passive. I asked him why it seemed like they loved Olivia more than me. He groaned, looked uneasy, and continued, "We don't love her more, Sarah. She just needs us more." What the heck does that even mean? Is she in more need of them? She had everything handed to her. If anyone required assistance, it was me. As I became older, the gap between us widened. Olivia went on to greater and better things, an Ivy League degree, a high-paying job in finance, and a sparkling engagement ring from her equally beautiful fiancé. And me? I felt stuck. My art career didn't take off as I had hoped, and every time I saw my folks, they'd say, "So, what's next?" As if what I'd done so far wasn't enough. One of the most humiliating experiences occurred last Thanksgiving. Olivia and her fiancé Kevin came over for supper, and my parents went all out. Prime rib, fine wine, the works. I brought a pumpkin pie that I had made myself, which I was very proud of, considering I am not much of a cook. When I placed it on the table, my mother gave me a tight little smile and said, "Oh, sweetie, that's nice, but Olivia brought a cheesecake from that bakery downtown. Everyone loves their desserts. Guess which one was devoured first?" Olivia not only receives all of the adulation, but she also appears to ignore it. She pretends not to notice the partiality, but I believe she enjoys being the center of attention. Years ago, I tried to confront her about it. I told her it was unfair that Mom and Dad treated us differently. She stared at me with wide-eyed innocence and said, "Sarah, you're being ridiculous. Mom and Dad love us equally." Then she turned around and uploaded a picture on Instagram with the remark, "My parents are the best," over a shot of the new watch they bought her just because. I feel as if I've been gaslit my entire life. Every time I try to express my feelings, I am met with either denial or sympathy. You're overreacting, Sarah. Or, oh, you poor thing. As if I were a frail little flower incapable of handling her feelings. It is exhausting. I've been growing increasingly distant from my family. I stopped coming to family gatherings and called my mother solely to learn about Olivia's recent successes. I've been focusing on my painting again, attempting to rekindle the passion I had as a child before their relentless comparison drained everything from me. But it's hard. No matter how much I try to remove myself, that voice in the back of my head continually screams, "You'll never be good enough." I guess what I'm wondering is, am I crazy for feeling this way? Is it inappropriate to want my parents to see me for who I am rather than who I am not? Or am I doomed to live the rest of my life in Olivia's shadow? After years of feeling stuck, I eventually discovered what I considered to be a nice place. I'd been working as a freelance graphic designer, gradually developing a portfolio that I was proud of. It wasn't a glamorous job, but I adored it. For once, I felt in charge of my life, free from incessant comparisons to Olivia. That's when I met Mark. It was a random meeting at a small business exhibition that I attended to network. I was standing awkwardly near a kiosk, browsing through leaflets, when he approached me. He was tall, with dark hair that had just the proper amount of gray at the temples, and he exuded effortless confidence, which I noticed straight away. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," he replied, smirking. I laughed slightly, ashamed. Is it that obvious? He presented himself as Mark, the founder of a modest but thriving technology startup that created software for small businesses. As we talked, I discovered that he was 36, self-employed, and had created his business from the ground up. Mark, unlike many of the folks I'd met at these occasions, was neither pretentious nor overbearing. When I explained about my business, he listened and asked questions about my design process and the types of clients I dealt with. It felt refreshing. We kept in touch for a few weeks. Mark was more than just nice and charming. He was intelligent, ambitious, and truly interested in what I had to say. He asked me to create some branding materials for his company, and working with him was fantastic. He treated me as an equal, which was unusual for me after being dominated by Olivia for so long. When Mark and I started dating, it felt like a breath of fresh air. For the first time, I felt recognized, not as Olivia's sister or the less successful daughter, but as Sarah. He wasn't concerned about my family dynamics or the baggage I carried. He cared for me. Of course, Olivia had to spoil it. At first, my parents appeared cautiously enthusiastic about Mark. They loved his success, though my mother couldn't help but make snarky remarks like, "Well, he's a bit older, isn't he?" Or, "I hope he's serious about you." Olivia, on the other hand, despised him from the start. I should have seen it coming. Olivia delights in being the center of attention, the one everyone envies. Mark's accomplishments made her feel threatened. She couldn't believe I'd found someone who was not only nice and helpful, but also extremely accomplished in his own right. So, in classic Olivia flair, she sought to instigate drama. It began quietly. Olivia mentioned during a family meal how handy it was that I met Mark while working on a project for him. "So, did you land the guy and the client?" she joked, loud enough for everyone to hear. I attempted to shrug it off, but the inference was clear. She assumed I was just dating Mark for his money. Things swiftly escalated after that. Olivia began spreading tales throughout our family, claiming that Mark was some type of sugar daddy. She even told my parents that I was exploiting him to escape my dismal career. "I just think Sarah's rushing into things," she'd say, pretending to worry. "It's not like she's ever dated someone like Mark before. You have to admit it's a big step up." What is the worst part? My parents believed her. My mother confronted me one night after dinner. "Sarah," she asked, her tone concerned, "are you sure Mark is the right man for you? He's so established. I just don't want you to get hurt if this doesn't work out." "What are you talking about?" I demanded. "Mark and I are happy. Why can't you just let me have this?" Mom hesitated. "It's just, Olivia mentioned some things." "Of course she did," I added, "because Olivia can't stand it when the attention isn't on her." I stormed out that night, but the damage had already been done. The seeds of mistrust had been sowed, and no matter how much I defended myself, it seemed as if my family had already made up their minds. The rumors did not end with my family. Olivia began sharing them around mutual friends, people I hadn't spoken with in years. One day, I received a phone call from an old high school classmate I hadn't spoken with in years. Hey, Sarah, she said nervously. I just wanted to check in. I heard some things about Mark and wanted to make sure you're okay. Wait, what things? I inquired, puzzled. She hesitated. Well, Olivia mentioned that Mark might be, controlling. She said you've been spending all your time with him and barely talking to your family anymore. I just wanted to make sure everything's all right. I was infuriated. That's not true. Mark is nothing like that. Olivia just. I paused, recognizing there was no use in explanation. Olivia had already caused harm. When I challenged her about it, she claimed to be the victim. I was just worried about you, she explained, wide-eyed and innocent. I didn't mean for it to get blown out of proportion. You know how people love to gossip. You're the one who started the gossip. I yelled. Why can't you just be happy for me for once? Olivia didn't care. She never does. All she cared about was bringing me down and keeping me in the shadow where she believed I belonged. Throughout it all, Mark was my rock. Sarah, he remarked one night as we sat on his couch, you don't owe anyone an explanation for our relationship. Not your parents, not Olivia, not anyone. The people who really care about you will see the truth. He could see how much it was hurting me and did everything he could to encourage me. I wanted to believe him, but it was difficult. Olivia's falsehoods made me feel increasingly lonely. Even some of my closest friends became distant, as if they didn't know what to think. It seemed like I was waging a lost battle while Olivia was winning. But Mark was correct in one thing. Those who genuinely cared about me stood by my side. My best friend Emily was among them. When she heard what Olivia was saying, she quickly called me. Sarah, this is ridiculous, she said. Anyone who knows you knows you're not that kind of person. Olivia's just jealous. She can't stand that you're happy. Hearing those words meant more to me than I could convey. For the first time in weeks, I felt less alone. Mark, for his part, refused to be swayed by the reports. If anything, they only strengthened us. He saw through Olivia's tactics and refused to allow her harm our relationship. She can say whatever she wants, he told me. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is us. He was correct. Olivia could spread as many stories as she wanted, but she couldn't take away what Mark and I had created together. For the first time in my life, I wasn't simply Sarah, the other sister. I was Sarah, the woman who had found love and happiness despite everything Olivia had thrown at her. I used to believe that things couldn't get worse following Olivia's initial rumors about Mark. I was mistaken. Olivia wasn't simply out to ruin my family's opinion of me. She launched her campaign on social media, dragging my name through the mud for all to see. It began softly, as many of Olivia's shenanigans did. She shared a photo of herself and her husband Kevin in front of their huge suburban home. The headline read, "It's amazing what you can achieve with hard work and dedication. Some of us don't need shortcuts." I realized it was about me. The timing was absolutely great. Mark and I had just shared photos from a weekend trip to Napa Valley, which Olivia would have undoubtedly seen. I attempted to ignore her posts, but they got more pointed. A few days later, another photo showed her holding an expensive handbag with the message, "Bought this with my own money because, you know, some of us don't rely on others to fund our lifestyles." The worst one, however, was a photo of her standing in her gym with a smug smile, holding a coffee cup that read "Girl Boss." The caption, "It's amazing how some people will do anything for a free life." Her friends and acquaintances chimed in, some even tagging me directly in their replies. I was upset, but I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her publicly in order to defend myself, but Mark urged me otherwise. "She's baiting you," he remarked. "If you respond, you're giving her exactly what she wants." He was correct, of course, but that didn't make things any easier. Every time I opened my social media, there it was, her smug expression, passive-aggressive captions, an army of accomplices. It felt like she was waging war against me, and I didn't even have a weapon to defend myself. A few weeks later, things escalated during a family meal. My parents had invited everyone over for what they called a relaxing evening. I should have known better. Nothing about being in the same room with Olivia could possibly be relaxing. Olivia was on edge from the time Mark and I stepped in. She welcomed us with a phony smile and an overly bright, "Oh hi, you too." But her tone was tinged with sarcasm. She hardly acknowledged Mark, instead concentrating her entire attention on Kevin, making a huge deal of questioning him about his career, their forthcoming vacation, and his plans to remodel their already exquisite kitchen. Dinner began uneventfully enough. My mother had prepared one of her hallmark dishes, roast chicken with all the fixings, and the discussion was primarily small talk. However, Olivia, ever the limelight seeker, felt it was time to stir the pot. She leaned back in her chair, whirling her wine glass like a villain from a soap opera, and said, "You know, it's funny. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and she mentioned how some people are living the dream of all money hunters." The table became silent. My father coughed awkwardly. My mother gave Olivia a warning glance, but she disregarded it. "I mean," she continued, her gaze riveted on mine, "imagine finding someone who's willing to pay for everything. Your vacations, your lifestyle, even your career. Must be nice, right?" Mark stiffened alongside me. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, but I wouldn't let her see me crack. "Are you trying to say something, Olivia?" I inquired, keeping my voice as quiet as I could. "Oh no, of course not," she responded innocently. "I'm just making an observation. Some people have all the luck. Luck has nothing to do with it." Mark interrupted, his voice low but forceful. "Sarah works hard, and she doesn't need to rely on anyone to support her." "Olivia worked?" "Oh, I'm sure she does," Olivia sneered. "I mean, graphic design is such a stable and lucrative career path. I'm sure you don't help out at all, right?" "Enough." My mother's voice sliced through the tension like a dagger. "Olivia, stop it. This isn't appropriate." But Olivia wasn't done. She slammed her glass down with a bit too much vigor, the sound reverberating around the room. "I'm just being honest, Mom. Isn't that what we're supposed to do as a family? Be honest with each other." I could not handle it anymore. I sprang up so rapidly that my chair almost crashed over. "Honesty? You wouldn't know honesty if it hit you in the face. All you know how to do is tear people down because you can't stand it when the spotlight isn't on you." "Sarah, don't," Mark murmured calmly, placing his hand on my arm, but I was beyond the point of caring. "Do you know what your problem is, Olivia?" I asked, my voice quivering with wrath. "You can't stand the fact that someone else might actually be happy for once. You thrive on making other people feel small because that's the only way you can feel big." Olivia's face flushed hot, but she did not answer. My father said something about everyone needing to calm down, but I didn't want to hear his half-hearted attempts at mediation. I grabbed my coat and turned to face Mark. "Let's go." We went without saying anything, the tension in the room so heavy that I felt like I was suffocating on it. I burst into tears as soon as we arrived at the car. "I can't do this anymore," I wept. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine when she's destroying my life." Mark drew me into his arms, his words calming. "You don't have to. You don't owe her or anyone else in your family anything. You've worked hard for what you have, and you don't need to justify it to anyone, least of all Olivia." He was correct, of course, but as much as I wanted to wipe Olivia out of my life entirely, I knew it wouldn't be that easy. She was more than just my sister. She was my parents' darling, the golden child. Cutting her out would also mean cutting them out, which I wasn't sure I was prepared for. The next few days were a jumble of emotions, rage, despair, and frustration. I blocked Olivia on all social media platforms, not wanting to see any more of her passive-aggressive posts, but the damage had already been done. Friends and acquaintances who had seen her posts were immediately asking questions, their tone tinged with thinly veiled condemnation. "You're not actually dating him for his money, are you?" One of them questioned me directly. "No," I snapped. "I'm not." But the stories lingered, and Olivia's shadow became larger than ever. No matter how hard I tried to get away, it felt like she was always one step ahead, ready to drag me down. After that horrible family meal, I knew I couldn't keep putting myself through Olivia's games. Every interaction with her seemed like a landmine about to detonate, and I was done falling into her traps. Mark and I talked about it, and we both agreed I needed to take a step back for my own sanity. I needed to set some boundaries, even if it meant missing family occasions. The first test came a few weeks later when my parents said they would be having a cookout. "It'll be fun," my mother stated over the phone, her tone far too enthusiastic. "Kevin and Olivia are coming, and you can bring Mark. We haven't seen you two in ages." I paused. "I don't think that's a good idea, Mom." She heaved an impatient sigh that made me feel like a troublesome child. "Oh, Sarah, don't be like this. It's just a little barbecue. You're not still upset about what Olivia said, are you? Are you still upset?" I asked incredulously. "Mom, she basically accused me of being a gold digger in front of the whole family. And that's not even mentioning all the crap she's been posting online. Mom dismissed it with a giggle. Oh, honey, you know how Olivia is. She doesn't mean half of what she says. You two just need to talk things out. No, Mom, I replied firmly. What I need is for her to stop attacking me every chance she gets. Until that happens, I'm not going to any event where she's present. There was a prolonged pause. Finally, she remarked, well, I think you're overreacting, but if that's how you feel. It wasn't the answer I was hoping for, but she didn't go any further. Mark and I spent the weekend hiking instead, enjoying the solitude and quiet of the trails away from Olivia's toxic presence. But my absence was not unnoticed. A few days later, my father called, his tone pleasant, but with that hint of disappointment I'd heard so many times before. Sarah, your mother told me you didn't come to the barbecue because of Olivia. Is that true? Yes, Dad, I said, bracing myself for the scolding I knew was coming. Sarah, he replied, she's your sister. Families fight sometimes, but that doesn't mean you just walk away. Your mom and I raised you both better than that. I felt a knot form in my throat. Dad, this isn't just a fight. This is years of Olivia tearing me down, and I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I have to protect myself. He exhaled. I get that you're upset, but don't let this destroy the family. You two need to find a way to work things out. Destroy the family? The word struck me like a punch in the gut. It was the same guilt trip strategy my parents had used throughout my life to keep me in line, and I was sick of it. I'm not the one destroying the family, Dad. I murmured, my voice trembling. If you want to blame someone, blame Olivia. However, he did not. He never would. Over the next 2 months, I stuck to my decision. I denied any invitations from my parents to events attended by Olivia. Let us know when you're hosting something without Olivia, I'd propose. They never did. Every time I turned them down, they'd say I was being harsh, Olivia was doing her best, and I was letting a minor misunderstanding destroy everything. What they didn't realize, or refuse to recognize, was that this was not a misunderstanding. This was a pattern of conduct that had persisted throughout my life, and I was not going to continue submitting myself to it merely to keep the peace. The distance from my family was difficult, but it also allowed me to focus on myself. I immersed myself into my business, accepting new clients and developing my portfolio. Mark was my biggest supporter, always there to encourage me and remind me of my worth when I was doubting myself. Slowly but steadily, I began to feel like I was reclaiming my identity. Sarah the artist, the partner, the woman who did not want her family's approval to be complete. Olivia, on the other hand, was not satisfied with the status quo. One afternoon, my dearest friend Emily called me. Hey, have you seen Olivia's latest post? She inquired, her tone tinged with alarm. No, I replied, my stomach sinking. What did she do now? Emily hesitated. She posted this picture from your parents' anniversary dinner, and the caption said, some of us actually show up for our family. Watch your family first. I groaned. Unbelievable. She can't stand that I'm not playing her game anymore. So now she's trying to make me look like the bad guy. Emily sighed. I know it's hard, but don't let her get to you. You're doing the right thing by setting boundaries. I wanted to believe her, but guilt was gnawing at me. Every time I saw a picture of my family without me, every time I heard my mother's disappointed tone or my father's angry sighs, I felt as if I had failed them. It didn't matter that I was defending myself. Part of me still craved their acceptance and validation. The breaking point occurred a few weeks later when my parents asked Mark and me to supper. It'll just be the 4 of us, Mom said. No Olivia, no drama. I reluctantly agreed. I wanted to believe they were finally listening to me and understanding where I was coming from. However, when we arrived, there was a 5th place setting on the table. My heart fell. Please tell me that's not for who I think it is, I requested. Before my mother could respond, the doorbell rang. Olivia strolled in moments later, smiling. Oh, Sarah, I didn't know you'd be here, she remarked, her tone full of faint astonishment. I turned to my parents. Are you serious? You lied to me. Sarah, please, Mom begged. We just thought if you two spent some time together, you could work things out. I shook my head, tears of fury and betrayal welling up in my eyes. You don't get it, do you? I'm not the problem here. She is. Olivia gasped and clutched her chest in mock indignation. Me? What did I do? I could not handle it anymore. You know exactly what you did, Olivia. You've spent our entire lives tearing me down, and I'm done pretending it's okay. I'm done being your punching bag. She smirked. Oh, please. You're so sensitive, Sarah. Maybe if you stopped playing the victim all the time, people would actually take you seriously. That was it. I grasped Mark's hand and turned to face my parents. If you can't respect my boundaries, then I can't be part of this family anymore. My mother started to cry. My father seemed to want to say something, but didn't know what. Olivia simply stood there, looking as smug as ever. As we walked out, Mark squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, he replied. I wanted to believe him, but all I could feel was grief. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, life was peaceful. Mark and I had discovered a rhythm together, a kind of sanctuary away from the drama that my family was continually causing. I was still separated from my parents and Olivia, but I felt no remorse. I'd spent too much of my life bending over backwards to please them. I was now focused on my own happiness. Their happiness increased tenfold when Mark proposed. We were on vacation and stayed at a beautiful home on a remote island. It was the kind of paradise I could only imagine. Pristine beaches, lush foliage, and a villa straight out of a tourist brochure. Mark planned the entire vacation as a surprise for our 2-year anniversary. He urged me to pack my luggage, but didn't tell where we were going, just that it would be exceptional. The proposal took place on the second night, following a romantic dinner on the balcony facing the ocean. As the sun sank, the sky turned orange and purple, and the sound of waves breaking against the shore provided the ideal backdrop. I was savoring the scenery when Mark abruptly dropped to one knee, clutching a little velvet box in his palm. Sarah, he replied, his voice steady but full of passion. The last 2 years with you have been the happiest of my life. You have shown me what it means to truly love and be loved. I hope to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me? I was so overwhelmed that I could barely speak. As I nodded, tears flowed down my cheeks, and my heart felt like it was about to burst with excitement. Yes, I eventually managed to say. Yes, of course, I'll marry you. The ring was stunning, a basic yet elegant design featuring a single diamond that glittered like the stars above us. It wasn't gaudy or over the top, and I appreciated that Mark had chosen something so perfect for me. We spent the remainder of the evening partying, sipping champagne beneath the stars, and fantasizing about our future together. For once, I felt like my life was mine, not defined by my family's expectations or Olivia's shadow, but by the love and pleasure I'd created with Mark. When we returned from our trip, we began arranging the wedding. Neither of us wanted anything large or ostentatious. We both preferred closeness over show. We settled on a small ceremony with only 25 guests, close friends and family members who had been supportive of our relationship since the beginning. Olivia was clearly not on the guest list. My parents' invitation required a more hard decision. I struggled with it for weeks, divided between wanting them to be there and fearing the drama they may cause. Finally, I decided to accept them, but I made it clear that if they brought Olivia as a guest, they would be instantly uninvited. This is my day, I informed them honestly. I'm not going to let her ruin it. The site was ideal, a quaint winery secluded in the countryside with rolling hills and scenic views. The wedding would be held in an outside garden, followed by dinner and dancing beneath a canopy of fairy lights. Mark and I collaborated closely with Amanda, a wedding planner who helped us bring our vision to life. She was a godsend, keeping things on track and making sure no details were neglected. Of course, Olivia learned about the wedding. I'm still unsure how. My parents said they didn't tell her, but I wouldn't put it past them to accidentally reveal it. Once she knew, the sabotage began. It all started with rumors. Olivia called up extended family members who hadn't been invited, explaining that I had purposefully excluded them because I thought I was too good for the family. She informed one cousin that the wedding was being held at a fancy, costly vineyard and that I was wasting Mark's money like it was going out of style. She's always been jealous of me, Olivia allegedly stated. This whole wedding is just her way of trying to one-up me. I learned about the rumors from my Aunt Karen, who contacted me one evening, apparently disturbed. Is it true, Sarah, that you are not inviting anyone from your family except your parents? She asked. Aunt Karen, that's not true, I exclaimed, my wrath boiling over. We are having a simple wedding, that is all. It's not about excluding somebody. It's about maintaining intimacy. Well, Olivia's been saying some things, she admitted. I just thought you should know. I thanked her for the heads up and hung up, my hands quivering in anger. Mark spotted me pacing the living room and grumbling under my breath. She's unbelievable. I complained. She's spreading lies about me to the entire family just because I didn't invite her to my wedding. Mark wrapped his arms around me, his calm presence grounding me. Let her say whatever she wants, he muttered. The individuals that matter understand the truth. Do not let her steal your joy. He was correct, of course, but it didn't make things any easier. Olivia's rumors sparked a chain reaction, and I soon found myself getting calls and messages from distant relatives demanding to know why they hadn't been invited. It was exhausting, but I wouldn't let it impede my plans. When the wedding day arrived, I was a bundle of jitters, not because of Olivia. Amanda had informed me that the venue had strict security measures in place and that no unauthorized guests would be admitted, but because I wanted everything to be flawless. As I stood in the bridal suite, looking in the mirror, I felt a sense of peace come over me. My gown was simple but lovely, a flowing A-line with delicate lace embellishments and a soft champagne color. My dearest friend Emily stood alongside me, smiling as she adjusted my veil. "You look incredible," she replied. "Mark's going to lose it when he sees you." The ceremony was all I had imagined it would be. As I came down the aisle, my heart leaped when I saw Mark waiting for me, his eyes full of love and pride. We exchanged meaningful and highly personal vows, and when we said, "I do," there wasn't a dry eye in the yard. The reception was equally as wonderful. The meal was exquisite, the wine flowed freely, and the dance floor was filled with laughing and happiness. My parents behaved appropriately, though I could sense my mother was uncomfortable without Olivia. Still, for once, the spotlight was on me, not on family conflict or sibling rivalry, but on the love Mark and I shared. As the night came to a close, I found myself sitting with Emily and a few other close friends, reminiscing on everything that had led up to this point. "You did it," Emily remarked, raising her glass in toast. "You stuck up for yourself and achieved pleasure. That is what matters." Following the wedding, Mark and I hoped Olivia would finally leave us alone, but of course, that was too much to ask. Instead, her toxic behavior worsened. She began spreading even more ridiculous accusations, not only about me, but also about Mark. According to Olivia, Mark had a history of dominating his partners, had been sued for fraud in the past, and was using his fortune to influence me into separating from my family. Of course, it was all falsehood, but the sheer arrogance of it was terrible. The worst aspect was that her lies began to damage Mark's professional reputation. One of his business associates, different Mark, called him to inquire about the lawsuit. At first, Mark was perplexed, but when the associate mentioned that he had learned about it through a mutual acquaintance, it was evident that Olivia was the source. This was the last straw for Mark. He was not the kind to exacerbate situations unnecessarily, but this wasn't simply petty family drama anymore. It was defamation, and it was beginning to harm his livelihood. Mark decided to pursue legal action. He contacted his lawyer, Andrea, a no-nonsense woman who had handled his business contracts for many years. Andrea acted quickly when Mark explained the problem. "We'll draft a cease and desist letter immediately," she told him. "If she doesn't comply, we'll escalate to a defamation lawsuit." The letter was mailed a few days later. I hadn't seen it, but Mark assured me that it was clear and left no room for interpretation. It detailed all of Olivia's fraudulent assertions, requested that she stopped making defamatory statements immediately, and warned that failing to comply would result in legal action. Mark's tone when discussing it was calm but forceful. "This isn't just about us, Sarah," he told me. "People like Olivia won't stop unless forced to. She needs to learn that her actions have repercussions." Olivia did not take it well, as one could expect. The day after she received the letter, she called my mother in tears, accusing Mark of bullying her and attempting to destroy her life. My mother, of course, called me right away, her voice filled with guilt-tripping concern. "Sarah, what is happening? Olivia claims Mark is threatening her with a lawsuit. Isn't that a little extreme?" "She's lying, Mom," I responded, attempting to remain cool. "Mark's not threatening her. He's urging her to stop telling lies about us. She, not him, is ruining people's lives here." "But she's your sister," my mother explained, as if that justified everything. "Can't you two talk it out?" "No, Mom," I snapped. "We tried that, and it obviously didn't work. This is more than simply family conflict. She's breaking the law. If you don't comprehend that, perhaps you're part of the problem." Mom didn't say much after that, but I knew she still supported Olivia. It stung, But by this stage, I was used to it. Olivia's life began to fall apart as the legal pressure increased. Her toxic behavior had alienated many of her friends over the years, and this current incident appeared to be the last straw for a few of them. I heard through the grapevine that numerous people had cut ties with her because they were tired of the continual manipulation and drama she introduced into their lives. One of her closest friends reached out to me. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for ever believing Olivia's lies," she told me. "She's been saying nasty things about you and Mark for years, but now I realize it's all envy. She's toxic, and I can't be around her any longer." It was reassuring to hear, but also heartbreaking. Olivia had always been surrounded by people who adored her, yet her actions had caused her to lose many relationships. Now those bridges were crumbling one by one. She was also struggling financially. Kevin, her husband, had lately lost his job, and without it, they were struggling to keep up their extravagant lifestyle. Olivia refused to downsize, claiming they could wait it out, but debts were piling up. Credit card debt, house bills, and the expenditures of living the fashionable lifestyle were catching up with her. Eventually, everything came crumbling down. Kevin petitioned for divorce, alleging irreconcilable differences. According to what I heard, he had gotten tired of her continual desire for attention and refusal to accept responsibility for her actions. Olivia's situation deteriorated much further after her divorce. She lost her house and most of her belongings and was forced to move in with my parents. I wish I could feel sorry for her, but I don't. Olivia had spent her entire life putting others down in order to boost her own status, and now she was reaping the benefits. Even yet, it was difficult not to feel some residual anger when I heard my mother discuss assisting Olivia and getting back on her feet. "She's going through a tough time," Mom said one day during one of our few phone calls. "We're just trying to be there for her." "Of course you are," I replied, unable to hide my contempt. "Hasn't she always been your priority?" "That's not fair, Sarah," Mom exclaimed, protective as usual. "She is your sister. Don't you worry about what happens to her." "No, Mom," I replied simply. "I care about what happens to me and Mark, and I'm not going to let her drag us down with her." It was a harsh statement, but it was true. I'd spent far too much of my life thinking about Olivia, about how to deal with her drama, and how to convince my parents of the harm she was creating. I was now focused on defending myself and the life I had created with Mark. Olivia appeared to fade away from my radar over time. The legal letter had worked. She ceased spreading lies about us, and we were finally at peace. Mark and I immersed ourselves into our profession and our relationship, creating a life founded on love and mutual respect. My relationship with my parents remained tense, but I had come to realize that certain things would never change. Every now and again, I received updates about Olivia from family members. She was still living with my parents and struggling to reconstruct her life. Part of me wondered if she'd learned anything from this, but I doubted it. Olivia is the type of person who rarely changes. Finally, I understood I didn't need her to provide me with closure. I didn't require an apology or recognition of the grief she had inflicted. What I needed to do was move forward, leave the past behind, and concentrate on the future. And this is exactly what I did. It took years, literally years, for my parents to understand what I had been attempting to tell them throughout my life. For as long as I could remember, they had overlooked, justified, and even glorified Olivia's behavior, regardless of how toxic or harmful it was. However, as the consequences of her acts became apparent, they were unable to ignore the reality any longer. I initially noticed the shift when on the phone with my father. Olivia had returned to live with them months before, and I had kept my distance. My parents periodically tried to contact me, but our chats were difficult. This time, however, my father sounded different, tired and worn out in a way I had never heard before. "How are you doing, Sarah?" he inquired, his tone surprisingly mild. "I feel like we haven't really talked in a while." "I'm fine, Dad," I replied cautiously. "Busy with work, you know." There was a gap before he sighed. I wanted to say I'm sorry." The words took me off guard. "I'm sorry for what?" "For everything," he said. "For not listening to you and not noticing what Olivia was doing. Your mom and I have discussed how badly we have let you down." I wasn't sure what to say. For years, I had imagined hearing those words, my parents finally admitting the pain they had caused by continuously siding with Olivia. But now that the moment had arrived, it seemed strange. "Dad?" I asked softly, "what brought this on?" Olivia, he acknowledged. Getting her back in the house has been eye-opening, to say the least. The way she speaks to your mother, the way she blames everyone else for her problems. It is tiresome. It has made us realize that we have allowed her to get away with far too much for far too long. Part of me wanted to be vindicated, but largely I felt tired. I appreciate the apology, I responded, but it doesn't change what happened. I know, he replied swiftly. I do not expect it to. I just wanted you to know that we see it now, and we apologize. A few days later, my mother called. She was never as forthright as my father, but her message was consistent. We didn't do right by you, Sarah, she admitted, her voice thick with sorrow. We ignored Olivia's behavior because it was simpler than confronting it, and as a result, we damaged you. I'm very sorry. Hearing their comments was a step forward, but it did not alleviate years of sorrow. I told them so. I need time, I explained. This isn't something I can just forgive overnight. They appeared to understand, and for the first time, they didn't try to force me to move quicker than I was willing to. Not long after, I received a letter. It came from Olivia. Seeing her handwriting on the envelope filled me with dread. I hesitated whether or not to open it, but my curiosity won out. The letter was long, many pages of carefully written text, and as I read it, I couldn't help but feel a range of emotions. Olivia apologized for everything. The lies, the manipulation, and the years spent undermining and making me feel tiny. She stated that envy drove most of her actions, but she did not go into detail about what she was envious of. She apologized for spreading stories about Mark, causing tension at family events, and capitalizing on years of favoritism. I know I've hurt you in ways I can't undo, she wrote, but I want you to know that I sincerely apologize. I've done a lot of reflecting, and I realize how toxic I've been, not only to you, but to everyone around me. I don't expect you to forgive me, but maybe someday we can start over. Reading her remarks, I felt a glimpse of something I couldn't quite place, perhaps belief or maybe optimism, but overall I felt cautious. Olivia's past behavior had taught me not to take her comments at their value. A single letter, no matter how passionate, was insufficient to repair the damage she had done. I showed Mark the letter that evening, and we discussed it during supper. Do you believe she means it? I asked. He thought for a moment. Maybe, but even if she does, you don't have to accept her back into your life. I know, I replied. I just don't want to make the wrong decision. If she is serious, perhaps I should give her a chance. Giving her a chance doesn't mean jumping back into the relationship as if nothing happened, Mark told me. You can take it slow, set boundaries, protect yourself. He was correct, of course. If I was going to look into the prospect of restoring a relationship with Olivia, it had to be on my terms. For the following 2 weeks, I tucked the letter away in a drawer, reviewing it sometimes, but without answering. I was not prepared, and I did not want to rush into anything. Meanwhile, my parents continued to work on repairing our relationship. They called on a frequent basis, not to guilt or pressure me, but to simply check in. It was a minor but significant difference, and I appreciated it more than I let on. Olivia had recently begun visiting a therapist, according to my mother. I think she's really trying to change, she told me. She's been talking about all the things she wants to do differently, how she wants to make amends. That's good, I remarked wearily, but I'm still not ready. I understand, Mom murmured, and for once, she appeared to mean it. Months passed, and I began to experience a feeling of closure, not because I had forgiven Olivia or repaired our relationship, but because I was finally enjoying life on my own terms. I was doing well in my career, my relationship with Mark was better than ever, and I had surrounded myself with people who genuinely cared about me. My connection with my parents was gradually improving, and while not ideal, it was a step in the right way. I eventually decided to write Olivia back. My letter was brief and to the point. I thanked her for her apology and acknowledged her efforts, but I made it clear that I required time and distance. If we're ever going to rebuild our relationship, I declared, it has to be on new terms, terms that respect my boundaries and my well-being. I had no idea how she would react, and honestly, I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking for her approval or attempting to please her. I was living for myself, which felt liberated. In the end, I recognized that forgiveness isn't about condoning someone's behavior or pretending the damage never occurred. It's about releasing yourself from the weight of that pain and choosing to move forward in a way that preserves your serenity, which is exactly what I plan to do. Life has a tendency of shocking you when you're least expecting it. After years of struggling with my own issues, dealing with family dysfunction, and questioning my worth, I suddenly found myself in a position where everything was fitting into place, not because life had suddenly become flawless, but because I had stopped striving to meet everyone else's expectations. Professionally, my graphic design career was flourishing. Over the years, I developed a strong portfolio and received praise for my work. The true turning point came when I entered an industry competition with a campaign I produced for a sustainable fashion firm. I had thrown my heart and energy into that project, creating a visual identity that reflected the brand's essence, while also pushing the boundaries of what was considered traditional design. When I received an email alerting me that I had won the coveted International Design Excellence Award, I couldn't believe it at first. I assumed it was an error. I must have read the email a dozen times before it sank in. Winning that prize was more than just a recognition of my abilities. It reminded me that I could achieve greatness on my own terms. The ceremony was held in New York City, and Mark insisted on accompanying me. "This is your moment," he stated proudly. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The event was a whirlwind. I strolled into the large ballroom, feeling both nervous and delighted, surrounded by some of the most prominent personalities in the design industry. When my name was called and I walked up to the stage to receive the prize, the cheering was thunderous. I delivered a brief statement, thanking those who had helped me along the way and dedicating the award to the mentors who had pushed me to pursue my goal. Following the ceremony, numerous industry executives approached me, including Isabel Marzahn, creative director of a large advertising agency. She said my art was refreshing and bold, and she wanted to collaborate on a new project. That conversation marked the start of a professional connection that would lead to innumerable opportunities for me in the years ahead. Winning the award also spurred me to launch an initiative I had been planning for years, a mentorship program for budding designers. I termed it Creative Futures. The purpose was straightforward: to give information, guidance, and chances for budding designers who didn't have typical entry points into the business. Setting up the application was no easy task. I collaborated with local design schools and industry professionals to secure money through a variety of grants and sponsorships. Mark, my ever-supportive boyfriend, offered to help with the business side of things, connecting me with potential sponsors through his own network. By the time the program began, we had a roster of excellent mentors and a group of bright, hungry students ready to make an impact on the world. The first year of the program was a huge success. One of our ments, a young woman named Tasha, went on to secure an internship at a renowned design firm, and several others earned scholarships to further their education. Seeing their progress and excitement reminded me why I fell in love with design in the first place. While I was busy developing Creative Futures, Mark was making waves in his own career. His technology company had developed from a modest, scrappy startup to an industry leader. After years of steady growth, Mark decided to expand internationally, establishing offices in London, Tokyo, Sydney, and Berlin. The expansion was a massive undertaking. Mark spent months traveling between locations, engaging with local teams, and supervising the establishment of each new office. It was difficult work, but he relished the challenge. "I've always wanted to take this company global," he told me one night during dinner. "And now it's actually occurring. It feels surreal." Despite his tight schedule, Mark always found time for us. Whether it was setting aside an hour for a peaceful supper at home or surprising me with a weekend getaway, he never let work come between us. His ability to strike a balance between ambition and love was one of many reasons I respected him. As our professions progressed, we began to consider what we wanted our lives to be like in the years ahead. We both enjoyed the vitality of the city, but we also desired a retreat, somewhere we could unwind and recharge away from the hustle and bustle. That is how we ended up purchasing the Lake Cottage. Originally, Mark came up with the idea. He had been looking through real estate ads one evening when he came upon the property, a large mansion on the banks of Lake Tahoe. The house itself was spectacular, with floor-to-ceiling windows providing breathtaking views of the sea, a large terrace ideal for holding events, and a private dock for boating and kayaking. "Take a look at this," Mark replied, sliding his laptop across the table. "I think we should go see it." I scrolled through the photographs, my heart skipping a beat. "It's beautiful," I said. "Do we really need a facility like this?" "It's not about need. Mark said with a smile. It's about creating an environment in which we can unwind and enjoy life. We've worked hard, Sarah. I believe we deserve this. A few weeks later, we flew to Tahoe to tour the property. The instant we stepped inside, I knew it was the one. The house felt like a dream come true, luxurious but intimate, with every detail carefully planned. By the time we departed, we'd made an offer. Having the lake house felt like the pinnacle of everything we'd worked toward. We spent our weekends there, having friends for barbecues on the deck, taking long walks down the beach, and relaxing by the fire pit beneath the stars. It became our haven, a spot where we could unwind from the stresses of our hectic lives and simply enjoy each other's company. Looking back on everything we'd done, I couldn't help but be grateful, not only for our achievement, but also for the path that had led us here. The difficulties we had encountered, the lessons we had learned, and the love that sustained us through it all. I knew there were more chapters to our narrative to be written, but for now, I was pleased. Life was not ideal, but it was ours, which was more than enough. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.